what I like about the feel of weight in my hands?
Imagine a popular Texas cheerleader and dance student suddenly thrust into a world of barbells, media frenzy, muscular controversy, and global change. That's the story of Rachel McLish, a trailblazer who became the first ever Miss Olympia, a glamour fitness icon, an actress, an entrepreneur. But behind the trophies and the magazine covers lie tensions. The fight over what female muscle should look like, the media favoring appearances over strength, and a decision she made that still divides fans today. In the coming minutes, we'll travel from her childhood in South Texas through her meteoric rise in a nascent sport, into the controversies in business ventures, and finally to her current life. What drove her to walk away from competition at her peak and why? And did that help or hurt her legacy? To keep things interesting, I've dug up 4 weird or controversial things about Rachel that might surprise even her most dedicated fans. Stay with us to the end as we dig deep to uncover Rachel McLish, strength and grace. Rachel Lavia Elizondo was born June 21st, 1955 in Harlingen, Texas.
I grew up in South Texas.
Her mother was Raquel and her father was Rafael of Mexican ancestry. South Texas in the 60s was conservative, traditional. Her mother was a homemaker and her father was a breadwinner. She had 4 siblings with 1 older brother and sister and 2 younger sisters. She was always active as a child, playing with her siblings, her cousins, and her friends. She began taking dance lessons at the age of 7, becoming more and more adept at tap, ballet, and jazz dancing. Fortunately, my older sister was obsessed with having a great figure, she says, especially a flat stomach. So we were jogging and exercising with Dad's weights long before these activities became popular with women. She looked up to her older brother, recognizing that he got to do all the fun stuff, hunting, fishing, and sports. At the time, in such a small town, there were limited sporting opportunities for girls. She knew, even at a young age, that she did not want to be a stay-at-home mom like her mother. I think the parent I most identified with was my father, she says, and I'll tell you why. He had strength, he had freedom, he had money, and he made all the decisions. In junior high, Rachel joined the cheerleading squad. Her striking good looks and incredible body gained plenty of attention, and with her personality, she ended up being named Harlingen High School's football sweetheart, not once but twice. After graduating from high school in 1973, she left home for college, attending the University of Texas Pan American in Edinburgh, Texas. She really missed cheerleading, especially the physicality of it and being in shape. When she went back home for a visit one weekend, her father, who was known to be a man of few words, made a negative comment about her body, something along the lines of, "Those aren't the legs I used to know." I decided I needed exercise, she said, so I went to a health club. I was very intimidated by the health club environment, and I finally got the nerve to walk in. And the instant I walked in, I fell in love with the atmosphere. I just knew that's what I wanted to do with my life.
It hurts so good. You do it.
She has described walking through the doors of what was branded the Shape Center as an almost mystical experience. As a child, she had spent hours watching her father lifting weights and remembered being awed by his strength and muscularity. She was eager to begin lifting, but as a broke college student, she wasn't sure she could afford the membership fees. So she convinced the owner to give her a job, initially teaching classes before moving up to become a manager. She studied hard while working at the club, eventually earning a degree in physiology and health and nutrition in 1978. In the mid-70s, when Rachel first began working and working out at a health club, there was no such thing as co-ed training. The men worked out on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, she says, and the women had access to the club on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. When fitness started to become more and more popular and more mainstream in the 80s, some clubs started to have co-ed training. When Rachel moved to Southern California in 1981, she says, "I noticed that the fitness centers were all co-ed. So when I went back to Texas, I made the suggestion, let's try out a couple of co-ed days." In addition to a degree, Rachel earned herself a husband. While attending the university, Rachel met John P. McLish. They dated for a few years and married shortly after she graduated, February 3, 1978. She described in an interview in 1980 that John was a musician and mentioned that he had only been bodybuilding for 6 months at the time. It's not clear when they divorced. Rachel was always driven to help people, particularly women, take control of their bodies and not be resigned to being overweight or out of shape. She did this primarily through promoting her health club and acting as a personal trainer and coach. But as she won bodybuilding competitions and her notoriety grew, it gave her a stronger and louder platform with an ever-extending reach. Suddenly, millions more people were listening to what she had to say about fitness and nutrition. The first contest she entered was the U.S. Women's Championship in 1980. She placed first, with Georgia Miller Fudge placing second and Claudia Wilburn third. Rachel is 5 foot 6 inches tall, and she weighed 117 pounds at that contest. In interviews, she has described what led up to her making that leap from fitness as a career and hobby to competing. Once she graduated from college, she and the manager of the club where she worked formed a partnership and opened the Sport Palace Association gym in her hometown of Harlingen.
I loved high school. I'm one of those people I loved Harlingen High School.
They used a somewhat innovative technique for the times to help drive success. As the building entered construction, they set up a temporary sales office and began chatting with folks and selling memberships. By the time the gym opened, they already had 1,000 paying members. Her partner at the time kept showing her men's bodybuilding magazines and pointing out photos of female competitors. When Rachel saw an upcoming contest that aligned with the opening of their new health club, she thought it would be a good chance to bring attention to their business. It's interesting that her Wikipedia page is incorrect, listing her second place finish at the Frank Zane Invitational Contest in 1980 as her first contest. But that was her second contest. And as we all know, she then moved on to enter and win the first inaugural Miss Olympia contest that first year. She has admitted that despite her cheerleading and dance background, her knees were shaking from anxiety in those first few contests. She was immediately launched into stardom. She was in printed advertisements as well as commercials on TV. She was on countless magazine covers. Her body had set a new standard for what a sexy, fit woman should aspire to, and her exotic good looks ensured she would earn eyeballs as a model, crossing over into mainstream America.
The Chicago Health Club asked me.
Despite her popularity and her mainstream appeal, there was tension and controversy. Some bodybuilding purists criticized her for being too model-like with not enough muscle to be considered a true bodybuilder. Rachel is very opinionated about steroids. As women's bodybuilding matured, competitors began to gravitate towards drugs to accelerate their body's reaction to weightlifting. Rachel never particularly trained for strength or size, and she was smart enough to emphasize her natural beauty. She spoke out against the harmful effects of steroids and insisted that women could be and should be muscular while remaining feminine.
Other women were saying, steroids bodybuilding won't make you look like a man.
As the debate raged, Rachel picked up a few more trophies on stage. She placed second in the 1981 Miss Olympia, then first in the 1982 IFBB World Pro Championships, as well as first in the 1982 Miss Olympia. Although she placed third in the 1983 Grand Prix in Las Vegas, she was conspicuously absent from the Miss Olympia that year. She and several other competitors had received lucrative offers to star in a docudrama called Pumping Iron 2: The Women. We talked about this a bit in our Gladys Portuguese biography not long ago. The original Pumping Iron, which starred Arnold Schwarzenegger and several other bodybuilding stars, was a big hit. Pumping Iron 2 was an attempt to capitalize on the first movie's popularity by creating a unique competition in 1983 called the Caesars World Cup. The movie covered the competition as well as the days and weeks leading up to it for many of the women. Years later, Rachel was somewhat critical of the movie, saying she disagreed with the way it portrayed Bev Francis, a powerlifter turned bodybuilder from Australia, as an overly muscular and almost manly caricature versus some of the more feminine members of the crew. She has said a portion of the drama was simply made up for the sake of the movie. Conversely, she has said she had a tremendous amount of fun in promoting the movie and that the producers and film crew really did a great job to make the movie a commercial success. Interesting tidbit, Rachel was disqualified from the competition after it was discovered her custom posing suit had a small amount of padding in the bra cups, which was apparently prohibited by the competition's rules. It wasn't too long afterwards that Rachel was seen with what appeared to be enhanced female appendages, presumably from an augmentation surgery. Rachel returned to competition in 1984, placing third in the Grand Prix in Vegas and second in the Miss Olympia contest. It was in the Miss Olympia competition that she lost to women's bodybuilding phenom Cory Everson. I'm sure you've seen my biography on Cory by now, but feel free to go check it out again a bit later. Again, we saw Rachel reiterating her belief that bigger was not better in women's bodybuilding. In one interview, I heard her insisting that women were bulking up in the off-season, coming into competitions a year later having added 10 or 15 pounds of muscle, and were clearly on steroids. She claimed to have a well-practiced eye and could tell who was and who wasn't juicing. And then, in a subsequent interview, I heard her say that Cory had added 11 pounds of muscle in 1 year, and it was simply too much. I think her implication was that Cory was on steroids. Regardless of the pharmacological fretting, that 1984 Olympia would be Rachel's last competition. But she had already started branching out from the advertisements and magazine covers. In 1982, she starred in a fitness video called Shape Up. In 1983, she was in a music video for Herb Alpert called Red Hot. In 1984, we saw Rachel in a small role in the movie Getting Physical. Also in 1984, she released her first book entitled Flex Appeal. It was meant to be a comprehensive guide for women's bodybuilding and included chapters on exercise, diet, beauty, and competition. The book hit the New York Times bestsellers list for several weeks. Given its success, in 1987 she released a follow-up book called Perfect Parts. It was another version of the same theme, with each chapter devoted to workouts for a different body part. In late 1986, she appeared on David Letterman's show promoting fitness in general, as well as many of the businesses she was involved in, and of course her new book. Then in 1989, she met and began dating film producer Ron Samuels. Ron was one of the writers of a made-for-TV special called Women of the 21st Century. Rachel was one of the main stars of the special, along with Ray Hollett, Mimi Hitzman, Diana Dennis, and Cynthia Rothrock. In 1990, Ron and Rachel married, and Rachel continued her entrepreneurial endeavors by launching her own women's sportswear line, with items labeled Rachel McLish for the Body Company. At one point, the sportswear was sold at Kmart, becoming the best-selling line of activewear in the country in less than 3 years. Rachel stayed busy working to promote it with various appearances and commercials, with the partnership lasting 7 years. During the late 80s to early 90s, it was reported that Rachel earned several $100,000 a year with all of her businesses. In 1992, Rachel worked with Ron to star in the movie Aces, Iron Eagle 3. In 1995, she churned out another fitness video, not unlike the one that she had done with Schwarzenegger 12 years before. This time it was called In Shape with Rachel McLish. Then Ron and Rachel followed up in 1996 with a movie called Ravenhawk. And in 1999, Rachel was inducted into the IFBB Hall of Fame. She had a bit of a mini comeback in 2006, posing for a spread in the April issue of Iron Man magazine. She made a public appearance in 2013 at the Joe Weider Memorial. Let's cover the 4 weird or controversial things about Rachel that I promised earlier in the video. Weird thing number 1, Rachel's second husband is Ron Samuels. Does that name sound familiar? If so, you may have watched my biography on Linda Carter a few months ago. Shameless plug, if you haven't watched it, it's really fabulous and you should do so immediately after finishing this video. Ron was married to Linda Carter of Wonder Woman fame from 1977 to 1982. Linda, who is typically pretty nice, politically correct, etc., has not had great things to say about Ron over the years. From my Linda Carter bio, Linda found the marriage to be difficult and confining. She has said in interviews she felt Ron was manipulative and self-serving, in some cases only booking her for a magazine cover if he would also be included in the photo shoot. Ron also managed Lindsay Wagner for a period of time, famous for her role in The Bionic Woman. Ron is 14 years older than Rachel. That's not too crazy in today's Hollywood scene, but it's a pretty big age gap. The 2 movies Rachel starred in, Iron Eagle 3 and Ravenhawk, were produced by Ron. Look, the 2 have been married for 35 years. Clearly, they must have a good relationship and love each other and are compatible. I just find it odd. Here is this much older Hollywood guy who manages Lindsay Wagner into a surprisingly strong female role in The Bionic Woman, and apparently drives Linda Carter cuckoo as her husband for 5 years, then latches onto an obviously strong bodybuilder and fitness guru in Rachel, and sticks her in 2 movies. He seems to be quite a unique guy, and the setup between these 2 seems unique in its own. Weird thing number 2, Rachel seems to have very curated, almost robotic responses in interviews. Oftentimes, she does not even answer the question. It seems like she just replies with one of the previously prepared answers. Some of her answers seem eerily similar from interview to interview, even years apart. A specific example mentioning that Sweden and Japan had reporters covering her bodybuilding contest in this 2013 interview, and again 7 years later in 2006, she says the exact same thing, mentioning reporters from exactly the same 2 countries.
Was there, Japan had a camera crew there, Sweden, Europe, and of course NBC was filming.
Rachel always comes across as extremely intelligent, respectful, and likable, but she is very reserved and doesn't seem to let much of her personality shine through. Graceful and cultured, yes. Relaxed and genuine, not so much. Weird or controversial thing number 3, society and Rachel herself consistently support this narrative that she was the OG female bodybuilder, that she practically invented female bodybuilding. but many women came before her. Doris Barlow is a perfect example. Doris won several contests in her time, was also a strong advocate for female fitness and agency over their own bodies, and even published a couple of books, all eerily similar to Rachel. In interviews, Rachel claims all of the previous women's bodybuilding competitions were Mickey Mouse. That seems pretty disparaging. Yes, the sport was just getting started. Yes, public perception and acceptance of women's fitness in general, and muscular women specifically, was just becoming a thing. But it seems way too self-serving and even egotistical to say all the competitions before, the ones that I didn't participate in, were Mickey Mouse, and it wasn't until I came along that competitions gained notoriety and became important. The fourth odd or controversial thing is related to Rachel's moral compass. As I have studied her in preparation for this biography, reading countless articles and watching dozens of interviews and videos, I'm left perplexed by her ethics. Yes, she has been a wonderful and consistent ambassador for the sport, and she has personally helped or in general inspired thousands of women to take control of their bodies and become fit. But how to juxtapose Rachel's own label of compassionate conservative with her obvious inclination to use sex appeal to further her own popularity? How to reconcile her casual mentions in some interviews of reading the Bible with her appearance in a 1983 issue of Playboy magazine. She was fully clothed in the Playboy shoots, but she has done fully nude shoots for other publications and other photographers. Of course, I can understand and identify with her competitive spirit, but she was caught cheating in 1983 and disqualified from the Caesars World Cup. Was that an honest mistake, or was she intentionally breaking the rules and just got caught? She has always been vocal in her stance against performance-enhancing drugs in women's bodybuilding, but at the same time, it's widely believed that she underwent cosmetic surgery for breast enlargement, which one might argue is just another different type of artificial enhancement. I'm not in any way judging her. I'm a big fan and have always been captivated by her beauty and her body, but I'm left with this cognitive dissonance in comparing these two opposite extremes of her moral compass. These days, Rachel and her husband Ron continue to live a relatively quiet life in Southern California. She is 67 years old now. Her Instagram account is more or less inactive, with no posts in over 6 years. She tends to be a bit more active on Facebook, with a few posts here and there sharing her thoughts about world events or photos from her life or her family. During her decades in the spotlight, Rachel McLish forged a path for women's fitness that was not about copying the men, but finding your own strengths and savoring the journey. Her strength and beauty set her apart from many of her peers, and her ability to capitalize on that inner prime set a new standard in so many ways. If you find her story inspiring, leave a comment down below, or leave a comment about when you first ran across Rachel and what you thought of her when you did. And what is your opinion? Did Rachel retire from competitive bodybuilding at just the right time, or was it premature? Thank you for watching, and please hit the like and subscribe buttons below to help me know that you enjoyed it and encourage the creation of new biographies.